All right, hit record. Okay, hello and welcome. If you didn't know before, my name is Sandy Hoy-Marushak. I am the director of LUK's program development um, group, committee. What is it? Services? I don't know. Program development, period. I use the she series pronouns. And today we are talking about LUK's new program development initiative, or NPDI. Um, I cannot see what's happening in the chat. So Phoebe or Shira, if there's a question, if you could just, nudge me, let me know. That would be helpful. A little context for today. This is a little bit different from our typical program development seminar, and that today and the next 6, 8 weeks or so are all focused on the initiative NPDI. So that I will explain what that is. And each week there is a new topic. They are laid out in the RFR, request for response, which is available on the webpage, luk.org/NPDI. Tons of resources there. I'm going to share that again. So the slideshow will also be there. Recording will also be made available to folks. So don't feel like you have to take a whole bunch of notes right now, as you'll be able to look at this again. Essentially, what we're doing today is a bidders conference, is what it's called out in the grant world. So RFRs, requests for response, go by many, many, many different names. LUK, we just call them an RFR, but you might know them as a request for proposals, an RFP, notice of funding opportunity, notice of funding availability, bids, solicitations, things like that. And so that's where a bidders conference comes from. It's a info session for bidders, people who are interested in the opportunity that is presented in the RFR. So that's what we're doing today. And okay, gonna switch to the next screen, I think. So what is NPDI? This is the second year that we are having this opportunity available to the LUK community. It is an opportunity for folks who are connected to LUK, so LUK community, will define that a little bit, have an opportunity to really have hands-on learning around how program development works at LUK, how grant writing happens, a little behind the scenes taste of what it's like to do a program development job. It's also, not only is that intent to build capacity, but to really identify needs, issues, problems that need a solution or a remedy, hence the question that I started with earlier today. So we have these really dual intents and a little history of NPDI and how it came to be. I think it was about 2 years ago. Our VP of Operations, Tom Hall, had this idea and presented it to MT, wrote it up, presented it, and it was approved. And essentially what it said, if LUK as an agency has a surplus over and above the minimum that was anticipated, that those dollars, that extra amount of surplus, would be invested in future LUK generated projects. In FY 25, there was a surplus, and that money has been set aside so that we can do NPDI for at least the current fiscal year, FY 26, fiscal year FY, as well as fiscal year 27. And that's the round that we're entering now, as well as the following year after that, and any additional surplus that we get between now and then, or any unspent dollars, will just get rolled into that so we can sustain NPDI moving forward and not have this really cool, really unique project end. So, yeah, last year we did, was the first year we did applications. It was a learning year. We have two projects that were awarded, and they are in like right on the cusp of implementation, like really ready to get going. There's been a lot of work that has been done. Last week we had folks, we had a demonstration of community mediation, and then we also had folks talking about PRISM pathways, which are the two projects that were funded for this current year. I will pause there and allow folks to ask questions if there are any questions so far. Okay, I will go on more specifically around last year. We had 10 intent to apply forms. We will be doing that again. The time frame, just because it took a while for the to know if we had funds available and how much and so forth, it started in January and it was really compressed. This year, you'll see we have more time, more technical assistance or TA, and more support available, a longer time frame to get ideas down on paper, and then also a longer time frame to get those ideas into like project ready, implementation ready status in the spring. So they will be up and running for July 1st. This past year was a little bit different because it was a much more compressed time frame. People had to think about and come up with ideas pretty quickly and then submit an application within, I think it was 7 weeks. So you can see we had great response last year, 10 notice of intent to apply, and then 4 folks followed through with a full application. Out of those 4, we had, I forget how many reviewers, somewhere 7-ish reviewers looked at them all and did scoring, just like reviewers of any other grant that we submit would do. And 2 projects were selected for implementation, as I said, community mediation and PRISM pathways. And both were funded at the same amount, the 22,500. Those budgets have been incorporated into division budgets. So PRISM pathways is in CES. So CES has a dollar set aside for it. And then community mediation is in CFSS, and there are dollars set aside for that project in that division budget as well. And I mentioned they're really, really on the verge of starting groups with kids, starting training for mediators. That's a pretty exciting time. Updates. All right, let me pause 1 second. Last year was a learning year for us. And so we collected feedback from people who had been involved. We have had conversations internally and here, debriefing, how did things go? What would we do differently the next round? And so here are things that are different this year. We wanted to make sure folks see this and understand and that it is clear. The 2 current funded projects, as we stated last year, NPDI is not meant to be long-term funding. It's meant to get a project up and running, and maybe it's a short-term project, one and done. Does not need to be sustained. If it is a project that should continue after NPDI funds, then there's a sustainability piece that needs to be addressed in the planning and in the application. So this is absolutely what it's like in the real world with grants. Funders don't want to fund you over and over again. They like, next new shiny object to chase. Um, so moving forward, NPDI projects that have been funded in the past will not be eligible for refunding as is. Now, as a caveat, if we're taking a project that was developed with the NPDI and replicating it in a new location with a new population, there's some significant change to it, that would be allowable. But just kind of rinse and repeat is not going to be supported. Does that make sense to folks? Okay. Sorry, all of a sudden I feel like I need to cough. Um, I mentioned already the time frame has been adjusted, so we're doing it earlier in the year, um, longer time, more support. Examples of that more support, program development staff will have office hours, and there's a link I will share later. We will also make it available on the webpage where people can just click that and sign up. And myself, Shira, and Phoebe, all that would be Phoebe, program development Phoebe, it all have time set aside, I think, every week. So there's 3 hours a week between now and the due date where people can sign up to meet with one of us. If those times don't work, we can always be flexible and add in more times to do one-on-one, or you want to meet with a whole team. That is also an option. Just reach out. We have the email address npdi@luk.org, and that's the best way to get a hold of us. Again, I will share more of that information again. In addition, we have added a couple new technical assistance topics this year. Last year was kind of like bare bones. We had really compressed time frames. So budget, logic model, sustainability, timeline, like we really just went one after one after the other. But this year we have more time to dive into some things and talk not just about NPDI, but how the concepts really apply more broadly to like the bigger program development process and grant writing in general. Something that we will be spending more time on shortly is this addition of a pitch session. So this is an opportunity early on for people to meet with program development and say, I have an idea. This is what it is. Get some feedback, identify a mentor who could work with you to really help you refine and ask questions, make sure you're thinking about is this the right place in the agency for that? Is this the right time? How will dollars be spent? What do you need in terms of resources? So really stepping, someone who's experienced with program development, stepping you through that process and providing more one-on-one support. In addition, learning this past year, we were really unsure about what it would look like trying something new. You know, there's always lessons learned. So one of the lessons learned was we need really good, clear, and frequent communication with the applicant supervisor, as well as in some cases, a project might be in a different division. So we also need good, clear communication with that other division. So not only are we asking folks to get approval for them to participate and submit an application, but we are actually looking for a recommendation from like a statement from supervisor and director saying, I understand what this means. This will take some of their time away from their regular duties, and I am willing to support that. So that's really what we're looking for with the recommendation. Another lesson learned, um, a little bit of time with the agency, time to understand LUK, get to know us. And so we are requiring that folks have at least 1 year with LUK in whatever capacity. Another lesson learned, 2 projects was too much to approve at once in the very first time. So we are looking at only 1 award to move forward this year, to go through the whole development process and then be ready for implementation on July 1st. And then in terms of the reviewing, so that's another piece. People get hands-on experience being a reviewer and really being on the other side, and that decision-making process, which is harder than we realize. We are going to have just a brief application for folks who are interested in being a reviewer. And then there's also going to be an entire month set aside for reviews. We're expecting that to be December, and I'm going to share that timeline shortly. So again, I'm going to pause so I can take a drink and hopefully not cough on you. And let me know if there are any questions.
Sandy, can you say more about applicants must be involved with LUK for at least 1 year? In terms of like, do they need to have been here for 1 year before the submission deadline, before the launch of the project? Like, I guess I'm wondering about the timeline.
Yeah. No, that's a great distinction. I am thinking by the time of application. So by the end of November, they would have been here for a year. Now, there's lots of different ways to kind of think about this and get around it. Applications can be submitted by more than one person. So you could have someone with longer time at LUK partnering with someone who is newer at LUK to do that. And also, this isn't just staff. So it could be foster parent, it could be a mentor, could be one of our young people, one of our youth leaders. We have representation from the YAB here, which is awesome. So it can be some kind of combination of I was a mentor for a period of time and I was hired to do something. We just want to make sure it's not new folks coming in really excited and energetic and getting overwhelmed quickly. We want to make sure that that's balanced. We've really spent a lot of time and effort thinking about how to set people up for success. And that's why we have made the changes and we have the requirements that we do. So any other questions? All right, then I will go to the next slide. Here are the objectives. These have not changed, not one bit. So first of all is that capacity building, really making sure if, let's just say, program development pools our money and we buy a lottery ticket and we win, and then there's a vacancy. We do not want the agency to be high and dry. We want to share our knowledge and our skills so that folks can be empowered and ready to participate whenever there is the opportunity. And then in terms of what a project could be, think about new programming, something brand new, something that's related to a new need, unmet need, something that's just becoming apparent in the community or among the people we serve. It can be, you can propose an update or a change to something that we're already doing. Maybe there's a better way to do it. That would be perfectly fine as well. As I mentioned before, with previously funded NPDI projects, if you're thinking about expanding them to a new geographic area, a new population, or having some new, maybe a new model involved, a new curricula, that would be acceptable. And then finally, investing in facilities, LUK's facilities, that would benefit the people that we serve. So it's not meant to make staff's life easier. We're not getting like a fancy espresso machine in every kitchen. Um, this is really what can we do to improve services for the people who need them. So, for example, one of the projects last year was improving accessibility to our office at Day Street. And that would be a wonderful thing to be able to do. And that's an example of something that would be appropriate for NPDI. So we touched on this already. Who can submit an application? So it's really any individual combination of individuals affiliated with the agency. So current board of directors, volunteers, youth leaders, foster parents, and then staff. But for staff, like I said, employed for at least a year, or we could talk about some kind of combination of involvement for a year, being in good standing. And what that means is when applications come in, we will ask HR, is this person in good standing? So, are they on a work plan, for example? And HR typically comes back and says, yep, good to go. And then I also mentioned already the prior approval of the supervisor and director in the form of a recommendation. Are there any questions on this part? Okay. Eligible projects, sorry. Think back to those NPDI objectives. So something new, something enhancing something we already do, improving a facility, those things. They have to be aligned with LUK's mission, vision, and values, fit within one of LUK's divisions. So anywhere from admin through CES, CFSS, BHCS, and the alphabet soup. Have the support of the individual or folks who are submitting the application. So the applicant has to have the support of their supervisor and director. And if the project is going into a different division, it also has to have their support as well. Project needs to be in our usual service area, complying with all laws and regulations. And as I mentioned before, current NPDI projects are not eligible just to be refunded as is. So any questions? All right, then I will move on. Here is an abbreviated timeline. There is a longer timeline in the RFR, which you can get off of the NPDI page. So we started making announcements and making things available last week. As I said, a soft launch. This is like the hard launch today. We will be having TA sessions. Like I said, the next 2 months-ish. Pitch sessions have the next several weeks to have those and really get some one-on-one feedback on your ideas. The intent to apply, which is required, is due toward the end of October. So there is plenty of time to really be thinking your ideas through and working on that. I do have more information about what is an intent to apply in a couple slides. There's the opportunity to ask questions. If you don't understand directions, for example, we have a way for folks to do that. And any questions and answers will be shared on the NPDI webpage. We have the application due. I believe that is the day before Thanksgiving. So both the application with recommendations, we want them all at the same time. Applications will be reviewed in December. Award will be announced in January. And then probably weekly meetings between mid-January through the end of June in order to get those projects ready to be implemented on July 1st of 2026. So as I mentioned earlier, one of the new aspects that we have added is this pitch session. So it's okay to skip this. However, based on what we saw last year, with those 10 intents to apply that we got, there were some that would have been really helpful just to talk to one of us about their ideas, just to make sure it was aligned with LUK's mission, vision, values, it's doable, to really ask some hard questions like, have you thought about this? Is it intended to be sustainable? And how, what kinds of ideas do you have about that? As well as program development works with divisions, programs, services across the agency. So if we know that an idea fits with something that's already happening, we can connect applicants to a mentor or to folks who can just can bounce ideas off of. Again, we really do want to set people up for success. This is the link to set up a time with a program development staff. Again, slides will be available. The link will be available on the web page if it's not already. We'll make sure to get that up there. Any questions at this point? Okay. As I mentioned, intent to apply, this is required. It is okay to submit it and later change your mind. However, you can't go the other, you can't decide on November 8th to submit an application if you haven't already submitted an intent to apply. So this helps us get ready and thinking about how many reviewers we might need and doing that part, the recruitment of reviewers and getting them trained. And again, we can connect you with maybe there's another applicant who has a similar project and it would make sense for them to go together. Maybe folks are in one division and are unaware of, program or service that happens elsewhere, and we can connect you to other resources across the agency. It's really simple. It's one page, get your ideas down, and this is good practice for answering questions because that's what the grant itself is all about, answering questions. And these are like high level questions. At this point, we don't need the recommendation from the supervisor, but we are asking, there are specific questions for people to respond to. We are asking, when did you talk to your supervisor? Is your director aware that you're interested in doing this? So it's not just a checkbox, but it's also not that further step of making a commitment that they support your project. So that's due, I think it was October 22nd. I could be wrong, check the timeline. November 26th is when the full application is due, and it's worth 100 points. We have the scoring all laid out in the RFR. We have the questions, we have forms for the cover sheet, the logic model timeline, and the budget. So this is exactly what we see from funders. They give you the instructions. They do not provide this level of support. And then it's up to you to go and share as much information as possible within the constraints and the expectations in order to Get the reviewers on your side. Grant writing is really, in my opinion, persuasive writing. Can you get the reviewer to see what you are seeing? You see there's an issue or a problem. How can you convey that so that the reviewers are on your team? And we'll spend more time in TA sessions kind of talking about this. We can also do this one-on-one as well. Let's see. We will talk about the narrative next. So it's 10 pages. What we found last year we actually allowed 12 pages. No one was anywhere near that. So we cut it back a little bit, no more than 10 pages. We also removed some of the instructions because people ignored the spacing and some of the other things related to like font size and things like that. So this is, hands-on learning, but it's also supported learning. So we took out some of that extra stuff that wasn't necessary. What you can see here, though, are the places where there are higher point values. That is an indication of how important that section is, how much time to spend thinking about it, as well as how much space, as I say, real estate to take up on those 10 pages. So you don't want the summary to be 2 pages and then your project description to be half a page. You would want to flip those. So it's also, here's a advice, also really good idea to write the summary at the end by taking like key points from each section and then making it flow together. Let's see, what else do we have here? Okay. Before I go into support, any questions, anything that's come in on the chat or any questions that have come up for anyone?
I haven't seen anything come through the chat just yet.
Thank you. Cool. As I said, we have the web page, which I'll show you momentarily. We also have these sessions Wednesdays at noon for the next 2 months or so. We intend to record them and make them available. And you can see I listed some topics there, but there are more. They're all listed out in the RFR. I mentioned the office hours with program development staff. We have an email address, which will go to all of us. So we can like match you up with the best one to respond. And then we can also intend to connect people to mentors. Management team, leadership team, they're all supportive of this project. And mostly all have some really good experience and knowledge to share around it. This is just a quick little screenshot of what that web page looks like. Everything should be up there and up to date. I was asking Shira and Sarah to make some updates this morning, and I know that happened. So much appreciation to our friends in marketing for helping us with this resource page. Let me see if I can. This is the real page. And you have your RFR here. You'll want to save that. You have intent to apply is that first step. Cover sheet, questions for response. The timeline, logic model, and budget. So those 5 are for the full application. If you want to refamiliarize yourself with LUK's mission, vision, and values, there's a link to it. Org chart to see, like, here's my idea. I'm not quite sure where it fits. That might be helpful. Our LUK's AI policy. And then we have additional sources of information. Also, we have a ton of questions here. Do look at those, and if you can't find an answer, then reach out. Or if you don't understand the answer that's there, just reach out. Then after applications are submitted, there will be reviewers, peer reviewers. Um, Last time we had a nice mix of folks from throughout the agency with all kinds of different levels of experience. And they'll read through the applications, do scoring, come back together, kind of talk it through. If there's any like really wild variance in the scoring, we will talk about that and come to a consensus. The team then makes a recommendation to MT, and MT management team makes that final decision around whether to go with our recommendation or not. Then the award will be announced in January. Afterward, the program development team meets with all of the applicants because this is a learning opportunity. And so we go through, here are things that went well, and here are things that could be strengthened because you can resubmit. So folks who applied last year, either as an intent to apply or a full application, have the opportunity to dust off their idea, polish it, and resubmit it. So you can do that. And then implementation support, so that generally weekly meetings throughout the spring. So we're ready to get started. And just a couple of reminders, and then I will stop talking. Just get your initial idea kind of formulated. Talk with us. You can either get stuff down on paper first and come talk to us, do that pitch, or you can come talk to us first and get things down on paper. But those would be two of the early steps, really clarifying whatever your idea is. Use the resources and tools that are available. Don't forget the intent to apply is required. We do have the required recommendation letters this time in the RFR and or the Q&A. There's some further guidance for supervisors and directors around that. And then submit the full application. So with that, I will stop sharing. And good, we have like 10 questions, 10, not 10 questions, 10 minutes to ask and answer questions. Anything in the chat that hasn't been answered? I know we are acronym heavy. I hope that I did back myself up whenever I was using them. I see MT management team. So that's our VPs plus the president and CEO, Beth. Anything else? See, in the chat, we also have the link to sign up for office hours as well as the email address. So thank you, Shira, for putting that in there, and Phoebe as well. Okay. We did ask for feedback from folks who participated last year, and I think overwhelmingly people had a good experience, felt supported, and also felt like they learned. And that is, again, we want to repeat that this year. So if there are no questions, I'm going to stop the recording.